Hello, Hockey World. Welcome to HockeyBuzzcast today on Thursday. First, before we begin the show, we're going to start with Russ, who has something to say.
So, Reuters just put out an article a while back. I talked about this Subway's tuna fish. Tuna fish is not a very hard thing to make. Tuna fish is not a very expensive thing to make. I've worked in delis. We all buy it. And even at that point, this is what was in Subway's tuna. Chicken, pork, cattle DNA.
Good Lord.
So, of course, they're getting sued. And the testing is done by a marine biologist with 20 tuna samples taken from 20 Subway restaurants in Southern California. Like, I got to tell you, what really gets me about this is someone like me who doesn't eat red meat, if he ever were to happen on a Subway, which it hasn't been for a very long time, thankfully, I would eat tuna because I'm not eating any red meat. Or maybe, that's the number one choice for me to go there. And if I would have done that, I wasn't getting tuna.
Well, the weird thing is that my brother told me that he went to go to the sub shop at X favorite supermarket, Wegmans, and asked for a tuna sub, and they said that they were out of tuna, which is hard to imagine. It's like couldn't you just go down the aisle number 4 where the Starkist is and open up a couple cans and make some tuna? But I honestly would never eat anything from Subway. It's gross.
It's funny because they advertised it as 100% tuna, and if you've noticed, they've paid some pretty big stars to kind of shine up the Subway logo lately on television commercials, and I'm not buying it.
Wow, that's something. I mean, that's really
you can stick your sweet onion chicken teriyaki.
That's ballsy,
with the DNA.
Not put any tuna in there at all.
The DNA.
Wow.
Yeah, it's minus cattle DNA. Thank you.
That's crazy.
You want everything.
You do. You're right.
It is crazy. I mean, I could see. Look, something happened. They mislabeled something in one of them. They took samples from 20 of them. There's probably 1,000 of them in the country.
Oh yeah. That's crazy. I mean, that's just
Mike, go to Cheektowaga Subway and check it out.
What is your general
Thank God there is not a Subway in Cheektowaga.
Okay.
We rise above Subway.
I feel like chicken salads and tuna salads and things like that. Just randomness must prevail widely all over the world.
Well, I mean, there's different types, right? There's 3 or 4 different types of tuna, and everybody puts in mayo, and you put your various things in there with some celery, some
celery or pickles. Or
at the end of the day, you do expect 95 to 99% of it to actually be tuna.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I love real tuna. I'll get tuna in a restaurant all the time.
Yeah, tuna steak. Yeah,
tuna steak. I get that. I grew up on tuna casserole, which is the American staple of the 70s. I think
tuna helper.
Yeah, it was tuna helper casserole with the little let macaroni noodles in it and stuff like that. And that was just we had that I think once a week. I'm pretty sure it was like an every Wednesday thing. They tried to block it out. I don't think I'd eat it now if I tried to, but yeah, my mom was very much into we're gonna eat this on this day, this on this day, this on this day, and then we had the special thing we had was corn fritters. If we had that was
what day was that?
It was just a special occasion. I think it was the day that my mom forgot to shop actually, but it was us as kids. It was greatest thing in the world to have the corn fritters, which were pancakes and corn for breakfast, kind of.
All right, let me bring this up. When I was a kid, my father was a teacher, so we didn't make big money, but my mother would buy for the kids Kraft macaroni and cheese. Everybody, I think every kid eats those.
When that was the only option, we ate it. Once there became other options available. No, it's plastic.
My kids are 30% still to this day.
And
macaroni and cheese.
And see, that's my point. It's now you've got these gourmet, even places of business that have lobster macaroni and cheese or bacon macaroni and cheese.
I get that. There's elevated. When you elevate it, I'll still eat it boxed like the Kraft. But I won't get the Kraft. I'll get with organic real cheese and not that Kraft, whatever cheese they're talking about. That's essentially cheese that is powdered.
You mean that
powdered cheese? I don't care.
That orange powder that looks like cheese tang, or
but if you get it with no dyes, it's white and it's fine. I'm okay with it for a quick meal.
It's delicious. It's just delicious. I mean, and it's like, and I mean, because when you have kids,
and everybody eats it, and somebody in the chat room says, "I've never eaten it." You're a liar.
Bull. But that's the thing.
Possible.
I still like Kraft macaroni and cheese.
That's fine.
I do too.
You like Tang too, Mike. You really haven't progressed much from the 8-year-old Mike.
Well, hold on. Here's the question though, Mike. Are you using so again, obviously I can't eat Kraft, it's not kosher. We have a similar brand, but they have the powdered cheese. What we do though is we take regular cheese and melt down the regular cheese as opposed to using the processed powdered stuff. So are you using real cheese or are you using the powdered stuff?
I mix them both. I use the powdered stuff, and then I throw in like extra sharp.
And you're putting a little milk in it to mix it also?
And a little milk in and a little butter,
you want that reminder as a kid.
1%.
There are things you eat that aren't healthy, but there are these little reminders of childhood where you
there's no question that
and you still want that, whether it's good for you or not. It doesn't matter.
I don't care if it's not really cheese. Whatever it is. It just, with kids, you always end up eating whatever they don't eat a lot.
So that's a whole different thing.
I've finished plenty of Kraft. I make two things of it, and I know that the kids are going to have most of it, and I'm going to have like a third of that, and it's going to be awesome. And there is something about it because I've really tried because there's a place called Macaroni Grill. Do you remember this restaurant?
Macaroni Grill. Yeah.
There's only like one left right now. They really all shut down.
They were big, and then they started to close down.
They were a pandemic casualty, and
I was gonna say, is it located next to the last Blockbusters?
Probably. So Macaroni Grill had what my kids decided was because they eat macaroni and cheese wherever we go. They decided the greatest macaroni and cheese in the world. So I would used to go and get it for them once in a while as a special thing, whatever. I pick it up, and then they wouldn't. So finally, I went when the Kraft macaroni, the only one close to us now is in Harrisburg, which is like 2.5 hours away.
Yeah,
we wouldn't go there.
I'll tell you guys the best from the local places, not like a fancy restaurant. Panera has the best. They actually are fans of Paneras. Yes, they are, and that's one of the ones they'll get. But at the end of the day, even though they upscale to those fancy macaroni and cheese, it comes back to my daughter comes back from college of like, Dad, make me Kraft macaroni and cheese. Yeah, of course.
That's what we have.
Well, those in Canada will say that the Stouffer's macaroni and cheese is the best.
I mean, Stouffer's is okay.
The frozen one.
The frozen one, yes.
Yeah, that's popular around here too. But it's not Kraft. It's the size of the noodles. It's the cheese. Everything about Kraft macaroni and cheese. There's something about it that just is what it is. You can't.
What I don't like if you get the Stouffer's, like the sheet tray of it, it's too much for my house, right?
Oh
so
yeah.
If you get the smaller ones, I would rather have the boxed.
Not
the Stouffer's then.
Not the giant one, Russ. You're talking about
the giant sheet tray one. Yeah. You live off
family size. The one with the handles on it.
It's more than family.
You will not want to eat that ever again.
Heart attack in a dish.
Yeah. I've gotten because I'm a big fan of Stouffer's frozen lasagnas. That's like one of my meat lovers frozen lasagnas.
I like their French bread pizzas because you can add.
They're really good. They're called boat pizzas in this house. My kids call them boat pizzas. And can you make boat pizzas for us? That means that. But but I've gotten the full size, Stouffer's meat lasagnas. That's pretty good. And I'll heat it up all week. Because I like that heated up. I'm a big fan of reheated lasagna for some reason. I think that's
reheated lasagna is good. And I'm not a meat eater.
No, she says it. No, I know why. Because again, everything has a chance to congeal a little bit more and get that sort of layers.
Yeah.
Okay,
Anthony, our Italian Anthony giving us this.
I was going to ask this. Yeah, sure. You and Anthony, because in my house, we would have pasta on a certain day, and there would be leftover pasta. My parents used to fry it. They would take penne, or they would take, spaghetti, put it in a frying pan with butter and fry the macaroni.
Never heard of that.
That's pretty good.
I vaguely kind of recall when I was younger. I think maybe my family did it. Not that often though. But
I should try that. Well, my wife likes everything.
Did you do that on Prince Spaghetti Day, Mike? Was that when that was?
Was that Tuesday? Wednesday? Prince Spaghetti Day? What was the Yankee ad?
Spaghetti sauce was on Sundays usually.
Yeah. My wife likes everything burnt. Like she loves food that's just cooked.
Oh, burnt cheese is good.
Yeah, she likes that kind of stuff. Like burning cheese on a cracker.
Oh no, that's good. I like burnt stuff. Yeah, that's big. My dad passed that on to me.
Yeah, so penne here. Like if we order penne from a restaurant, whatever comes in as a to go or whatever, penne with like vodka sauce or whatever like that, it ends up back in the toaster until the top layer.
Oh, that when you fried it, you want a crispy. That's
what that yeah. So she'll
do the top layer. The pasta. I'm against that.
She'll take the top layer up, put that on a plate.
Us.
Hello, top layer off, puts it on a plate, and cooks it again. Top layer off, puts it on a plate, cooks it again. Top layer off, puts it in the plate. This is what happens with cheese, penne, and like layers. Anyway.
My kids know my go-to is eggplant parm on a hero. I mean, that is literally my go-to. It's got to be a real big hero so that the kids know that if they're going out and I'm getting something, that's usually if I'm getting it when we go out.
Nice.
Well, Jan, for everybody not in the metropolitan area, tell them what a hero is.
The sub.
So yeah.
Three of us. Anthony knows. That's a lot of people don't know though. They don't.
Hoagie is the hero. Yeah.
But you got to have not the smaller one. You need the big bread.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a difference in hero and because to me, hero the thing that separates hero from sub and hoagie to me is that hero is a piece of bread cut in half, like a big roll cut in half, and then the bottom half, and then you build the hoagie on top. Then you put the top half of the bread on top of that. Where a hoagie is cut almost all the way through, but opened up and then put stuff inside of it.
A hoagie is open-faced.
You're parsing it though.
You know what I mean? Like
that's how my dad made it. Listen, my dad ran a grocery store and he made hoagies, and that was how it was done.
Right. That's how
but I don't think that's what makes it.
Right.
I don't think that's what makes it. You know what I'm talking about when they cut the bottom half of it off and then build on top of that. The other half on top of that.
A sub is just the sub roll is sliced in half. They don't dig out any of the bread. It's just sliced.
Well, nobody digs out the bread.
Nobody's digging out the bread.
Nobody's doing
that. Unless you're carb watching, and trust me, the bagel boss behind me, I'll have the scooped out bagel with this. I'm like, just ask for crust.
You need also
ask for crust to make it easier,
you need the bread to absorb the oil.
You do.
Yeah.
By the way, Ak, we're going to be looking for an advertiser for our Great Bagel Challenge at the draft next July because we were talking about bagels, and Montreal supposedly has great bagels, but I dispute that because
I do too. I've had them.
It's a whole different bagel. It's a smaller and sweeter bagel.
It's a crusty one. It's thin.
Let me know before you go. I'll talk to the bagel boss. I'll talk to the bagel boss behind me. They're the ones who did the stuff for the Islanders last year.
Okay.
Because St. Louis bagels are that isn't bagels. That is bread murder.
Yeah, that's bread murder. Yes. I was very against that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think New York bagels, Philly rolls. That's always been my thing.
And then in New York, by us, you get what's called a flagel.
Actually, I'm with Eck on that because
which is like a flat bagel, but it's bigger than a flat. It's about this big, round.
Is that like a bialy? Is that like a bialy?
No, it's not a bialy.
Okay.
But a Philly Kaiser roll is better than a New York Kaiser roll.
That's the thing, and New York bagels are better, but
yeah, I agree with that.
It's the water.
And whenever you go like to a place far away, and I go to like you're like I'm in San Antonio and I see a store that sells Philly cheesesteaks, that kind of thing. Right. And always the thing they get wrong is the rolls. That's the problem. And they always say, "What are we doing wrong?" It's just eating meat. No, this is the same thing as you get there. I'm like, no.
Well, the deal is Buffalo exactly that they don't know what and I hate sounding sort of proprietor or whatever the
part like a know-it-all. That's okay, you can.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the part. And the ones that do it right know to order it, and that gets expensive when you're having to ship in the bread from the bakeries that are here.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Like so I have a friend of mine who opened the first bagel place in Israel, and he was trying to use the local water and realized it just wasn't the same. He actually used to have water shipped.
I've heard.
I know, but it doesn't work that way. I've tried it. I had a guy in
Virginia. He got it to work. Trust me, way different.
It's definitely different, but I don't feel it's the same. I had a place that did that. I think it was in Virginia when I lived there. Didn't pull it off.
Well, it's funny because water is so weird. Like we have a party. This is what sound ridiculous. You guys are gonna just mock me for this forever. But we have a party. We have a party once in a while where we ask people to bring in one of their we'll have like a macaroni and cheese night, and they have to bring their favorite macaroni and cheese or whatever. And then in an unmarked thing that and in some way so we don't know whose it is. We put them all onto a plate, all onto a table, and everybody blind taste tests and then decides what's the best. Right? It's a blind taste test thing. And you say, that's the best. You take it.
So you invite people to this to intentionally insult them. That's great.
No, this is
their steak. You just may not pick it as their best. That's
this is like the blind
taste of the British Bake Off.
Yeah, this is like the blind taste test that says, "Oh, I think that Budweiser tastes better than like bull crap."
There's us for being interesting people, Russ. I mean, we're just here trying to do interesting things.
So thinks he's Paul Hollywood. He tastes it and he goes, "This tastes like baby food."
The most interesting of these parties we've ever had.
It's his next door neighbor.
No. The most interesting thing of these parties we've ever had was telling people to bring a glass of their tap water. And so these are people from all over. There are people from New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, down by the shore. Somebody came in from the California and brought tap water from there.
I didn't make that.
And that was interesting because people who I grew up in New Jersey with my wife, and we live in Pennsylvania, but I can pick out South Jersey tap water like that. No questions asked about it, and it's good.
I can't believe you can, but I mean, again, people get touchy about food. If I were to try Mike's soup, which looks great on Instagram, and told him it sucked, he would take offense to that somewhere down the line.
Poured over your head.
You bet.
I know it doesn't suck. Even trying his soup, Russ. You know this.
All right.
All right, here we go. Ready? All right. All right. Let's keep going. The date. It's November 11th. It's 11/11. Of course it is. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, November 11th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and Cheektowaga Water has a wonderful bouquet.
I'm Jay Levine, and say thank you to all the veterans for their service.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
Russ Cohen, Sportsology. Yeah, my dad's a vet too. So yeah,
as mine is. Both. I'm my grandfather.
Yeah. And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. My father and my brother-in-law are vets. And we come to you every Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings, goings in the hockey world. No matter how stressful your day might have been, it's just about to get worse because we are going to sit here and talk to you for the next hour and try to figure this all out.
I mean, I'm here to stress you out even more.
It's just been the most relaxing hour of my day.
But nothing is as stressful as what happened to Bob Murray yesterday.
Yeah, I got to start there, unfortunately. And, he did resign, which was, and probably inevitable, as we could all see happening. And I'm not, a fan of our buddy Puck Daddy Greg, who definitely is not a fan of mine either. But he did write an article that I thought was really interesting about this that came out 2 days ago. I wanted to mention it yesterday, but we didn't get around to it. That, when he talked to people around the league, and I had the same experience, and Kevin kind of even accentuated it too, that the lack of surprise about this with Bob Murray was jarring. He wrote it, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And I can tell you that there's other people out there too. And the crazy thing about that is I know of a couple people that I'm thinking I don't think this ends here. I actually don't think it ends here.
No, but
not for the league. No,
not for the league. Yeah, but the thing that I found interesting was that what the reports are is that this was a product of a call to the newly established hotline that the league had put together after obviously after the Chicago situation. But I'll be careful in how I say this. Is it a little bit convenient that Bob Murray resigns and immediately announces that he's going into alcohol rehab? I almost got the fact like, okay, here's the excuse for what apparently has been years of him being sort of a rough character in terms of the way he treated people in that organization, and that now all of a sudden here's the out. Oh, he's having out issues with substance.
I mean, there's two sides to that, Mike. It's like I didn't know. I've never interviewed Murray. I've interviewed like some of the other people in their front office. So I didn't know this about him, right? But he may have just confronted this within himself too and said, okay, you know what? I think this is the cause. I've got to do something about it now because he was confronted with it. That's a possibility too.
Very possible. Yes.
So I think a couple of things. So first of all, as you talked about, right, obviously he was enabled for years to be able to get away with it without anybody saying anything, right? The organization that he worked for, look, they could have forced him to go to rehab, right? They could have said, look, we recognize you have a problem. We need to go get it fixed. On the flip side, right, you look at Carey Price, who literally didn't have to say anything because the supposition originally that he was stepping away for mental health not necessarily substance use or abuse, depending on which term you want. And he was very public with what he was dealing with, right? So given I hate using the woke culture that we're in, quote unquote, but given the culture we're in, given the need for more transparency, and given the need for the NHL post the unfortunate incident with the Blackhawks, and they still have a lot of remediation work to do, these things coming out, as Russ said, you're going to see a lot more of these coming out because teams have swept this under the rug, not just in hockey, in every single organization and probably line of business. And now with the environment that we're in, the publicity that's out there and the fact that it needs to become public, you're going to start seeing, unfortunately, or fortunately, a lot more of these stories come to the forefront.
There's always a reckoning. At the end of the day, there's always going to be, in one way or another, if you do these things, you can only cover them up for so long. There's always going to be a reckoning, whether it's social media, whether it's hotlines, whatever. It comes down to just better treatment of the people who work for you. It doesn't take much to, and again, Murray obviously had his demons. Alcohol is his, and as if that's true or not, again, we have to take it at face value. What was released. So, we'll see we'll see where things go. I agree. I don't think this is the end. There will be more things that will come out over time because the tools have now been put in the hands of those who've not been able to say anything before. The situation, the culture has turned now in that regard.
And I'll tell you, as far as who they have in house, I mean, Jeff Solomon and Martin Madden, each of them could be a GM. So I think they're going to probably do it from within. I don't think they're going to do it from the outside. That's just my gut feeling.
Yeah. I would love to see, either of those guys do it. I agree with you. I do think that, I don't like the excuse. I talked to somebody yesterday and they're like, well, this is the hockey, this is just the way we are in hockey. This is like, there's the tough guy thing in hockey. And I'm like, nah, that's not it. That's not what this is. I mean, there were tough GMs out there, and I don't mean to sit there and say that I know know people who are innocent, know people who are guilty, but I know a lot of people who work for Lou Lamoriello, and, I've really, he's been around for a long time. And if this comes back to bite me and something comes out about Lou, then I'm sorry. But I've talked to people who work for him, and they all say the same thing about working for him. They don't say the same. They say how great it was to work for him, how tough he is for sure as a boss.
Yeah.
It never goes over to the point of anything crazy and disrespectful in terms of,
no,
threatening. There's a difference between being a hard ass and being like an idiot,
His reputation in Toronto was tough but fair and stern, but also compassionate. So yeah, I mean, I think that he's able to sort of play both sides. But yeah, I mean, there is a certain aspect of the sort of the hockey mentality that probably is going to have to catch up to the 21st century. Certain things that have been said on the ice in the past are not acceptable anymore. Certain actions that have occurred in the locker room in terms of abusing teammates or razzing teammates, or even to the point of having the rookies pay for dinners or something, that kind of stuff. That's going to change, and the world has to change.
Yeah, it has to change, and I think that. And and I do think it's not just hockey. I do think it's obviously everything, and it's obviously probably most prevalent in the male-dominated sport. Like sports being so. No, we don't have that many female executives in hockey at all. And I'm not saying that
female executives. Period.
Right. We don't anywhere.
As the husband of someone who is involved in medicine and in medical education. All these higher levels of power are all white boys clubs.
But
I have the same thing, Anthony. Here, I have the same thing. My wife's PhD, and she is one of the top people in her company, which is one of the biggest companies in medical ultrasound there is. And when she has her meetings of the top 10 high ups, she's the only woman.
But even that's starting to change. I mean, you see Cammy Granato in Seattle. We see Haley Wickenheiser with the Leafs. You're
seeing like microscopic change,
right? But it's
easy to hire somebody as a scout, Mike. It's easy. It's not as easy to hire a GM or an assistant GM, and that's where you need to see it. It's great for the scouts and some of those other positions, but that's a lot easier to do than to go with one of those other positions. Then that would show actual big time.
I will say again, there is something to be said for working up the ladder. I will say that. But I think there are probably many women in the industry, in all industries, who have garnered enough experience to be able to run things and still have been passed over.
For women and minorities, like it's not just a women's thing.
I mean, just saying again, those who are not in the traditional when you walk into the halls of like, academia or something and all the pictures of the previous individuals. I mean, look at our, the presidency as well. The United States. We can go on and on about this.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And I think we're going to see some things. Like I said, the interesting thing to me is many of these executives like Murray that are in the NHL move around a lot, like they're at various different places. And, we saw like Quenneville, for example. Quenneville, it caught up with him in another place. It's going to be very hard for that to happen to some people. Quenneville's was such a specific situation, I think, that, where the guy comes out and said, there was one instance he calls Quenneville out directly.
Yeah, you're going to have irrefutable proof. Or
I think if it's a team you worked at 2 teams ago, or even a team ago, or whatever.
Yeah, hearsay is not going to do it.
5-10 years ago, those are going to be hard things to prove. And I think a lot of people, when they go to a new team, they sort of get a new start, and maybe some of them even learn. Maybe some of them even get more woke as it goes along, and that the new organizations aren't so bad. And I wonder how much of the past stuff that we saw 10 years ago, I saw a lot of it when I started out in this thing for sure. I wonder if those kind of people are going to be held accountable in different positions, in different places. So I really think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We're in for. I mean, I think the NHL is thrilled that someone took advantage of this hotline. That it actually worked as they wanted it to. And you got to be careful about that too, right? Because there could be people who are just bitter and that maybe they aren't so terrible.
Well, that's what they have to weed out. Like, I'm sure they're
going to be hard.
That's why they had to investigate these situations and not just take the word of one or two.
Yeah. And I think they did a pretty good job in this case doing that.
Now, Russ and Anthony were both at the game last night, one of the 3 games last night. So I have to say that, and my observation of that Leafs-Flyers game was burn the tape in terms of it being something that was exciting, it was a really dreadful, boring game.
The phrase I used earlier today was, after sort of watching it a little bit again, was basically the offensive game plans of both teams was basically water flowing around a rock.
Right.
That was basically the teams are getting into the zone, but they're doing not that whole area is like a dead zone.
Yeah.
The scoring chances, the passing lanes, they were non-existent once you reach the defensive zone. It was, it was just not a lot of. It was flow, but not a positive flow that led to. And even with the shots, I mean, even though both teams were in the 30s, 36 to 33 on shots, so much of it was perimeter, throw it at the net, hope maybe it'll happen. And if you look at the heat map from the game as well, wasn't a lot in the high danger area at all.
My 2 biggest takeaways were, regardless of the couple of turnovers you saw by Keith Yandel, I still put him on the top power play because their top power play is broken. And if you want to fix it with Ryan Ellis when he's back, that's great. But he's not back, and you're not going to beat Carolina by going 0-for on the power play. It's just not going to happen. And then the other thing is, I would leave the other lines alone for now, because if you start changing lines for a team like Carolina, you could be in a little bit of trouble. I would leave it alone.
Lines today were with the first 3 lines were still the same. I think they're going to go. I might get they're going to go. They're flying to Carolina. I think today.
I could see mixing the 4th a little.
The 4th line are trying to figure things out because Hayes is really trying to push the play Saturday.
Yeah,
so Hayes was rotating in and out with the unit. With that unit, and Ellis, I think is going to play more. I shouldn't say for sure, but it sounds to me like they're looking at Saturday against Dallas.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat was asking what's the injury with Tavares. It's nothing serious. He had Dustin Brown roll up on his ankle on Monday. He skated for 40 minutes in the morning as an optional, but they just didn't want to push it because they have games on consecutive nights against Calgary on Friday, which is the Hall of Fame game, and then in Buffalo on Saturday. So, but the thing is, it's like if you notice without Tavares, Kerfoot moves to the center. He's the center on the number 2 line. All your eggs basically in one basket with Nylander and Matthews and Bunting on that top line, and then Marner and Kerfoot on the other, and then you really don't get a lot of offense out of
Kasha with a goal yesterday. You finally got some secondary scoring.
But the funny thing, Anthony, I think it was 15 straight goals from either Tavares, Marner,
16,
Matthews.
I think it broke 16. That was 16 straight goals until the Kasha goal. Yeah,
and I said, once the core group got going, that was going to pull, but. Now you need the core group going, and you need some secondary scoring. And the one thing I doubted going into the year, and you saw it, their third line is a complete zero offensively. They're basically like one. It's like ones on offense across the board. Engvall, Comp, and Kasha. And you can't have a third line that's just going to not score at all. I mean, teams are going to shut down the 2 lines, and they're getting no offense out of their defense.
I mean, they have 1 goal. Like I talked about it a few weeks ago.
13 games out of their defense.
Yeah, I just can't believe they have 1 goal. As an example, the Minnesota Wild have like 34% of their scoring from their blue line. You should at least be like 15%. Like it's minuscule for the Leafs. It almost doesn't exist. It's crazy.
I agree. It was a weird game to watch, that certain hesitancy that both teams are playing. I think with that neither team is usually playing with.
Okay, I have to bring this up. It was prevalent in both games with the Leafs this week. The NHL really has their head up their ass when it comes to goals being kicked in or being ruled not kicked in. Because I'll tell you right now, the Philip Deneau goal that counted with LA against Toronto on Monday, it was like Morton Anderson scored that goal. It was a blatant kick. Now I'll leave it up to you, Anthony. I didn't think that the Nylander goal was. He booted it. I think the puck went off his skate.
I think his foot was in the right place at the right time. That was my, as I watched the replay on it, my initial take when it was no goal was actually a surprise, because the way his foot was positioned, it did not look like that was a quote distinct kicking motion. Now again,
that's the part that needs to be fixed, because I was talking to some others. I hate that. And players have gotten very good at disguising scoring with their feet, because Nylander not at one moment was ever trying to put his stick on that puck to actually shoot it on the net, but he knew he could direct it on the net.
As long as you turn your skate and you don't move your skate forward, they don't consider that a distinct.
Which is ridiculous. Motion. I think everything going off the skate,
you are directing the puck by turning your foot to make contact.
None of it should be a goal.
There's a simple way to fix this. I brought it up before, but I stick by this. Really do. The rule needs to be changed from a distinct kicking motion to is your foot moving? Like if all you have to do is change your foot,
or you just don't allow goals going in off somebody's foot.
You can't do that because
that's what I would do.
You can't do that because of the shots from the point or what have you. Different things like deflections are part of hockey, right? So, but
deflections off the stick.
If you're
what's the difference between deflecting off somebody's body and going in the net? It still counts as a goal.
If you're stationary though. And you guys like there, and it's not like we're.
My feeling is that the only way you're going to eliminate this completely is if again you remove the skate portion, which I don't think is ever going to happen.
No,
I think it's as Jan is alluding to, as Eck is alluding to here. Then what about other body parts? And
I think it's easier to score off the stick than it is your chest.
Happen.
And it's easier to score up the skate than off your chest, though. It is.
I agree with you, but the point is with scoring down in general, I don't think the NHL is going to take away another.
No, they're not going to, but I think they should.
No, but I think, and as I felt last night, and Carter Hart in post game was very sort of he picked the right words to say in that circumstance where he said, "I'm not going to say."
Yeah.
He probably was thinking he wasn't making an effort to put his stick down to deflect that puck.
Yeah.
So, but he kind of kept that quiet. He kind of kept it in another way where, saying it in the way so he doesn't get fined or something.
Right. He was doing the best he could on that. I agree. I don't know. But I mean, again, that really, my other point about the hesitancy of both of these teams, though, I think, is has less to do with that. The kicking pucks in than the fact that these teams are just. The Flyers had, in their first 5 games, had like 24 goals, and then their last 5 games have had 6 or something like that. There's some ridiculous number.
Not though. We know how it goes.
Yeah, and that's been their thing, right? That's been their thing for years now.
That kind of a scoring rate is unsustainable.
Yeah,
it's and then it's floodgate, it's feast or famine. That's it, and that's where the Flyers are now. Process-wise, was probably the first game last night where I was more concerned about how Philadelphia was trying. They were overpassing.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to give the Leafs credit for really playing, I thought, really good defense in their end. And considering what happened to them against LA,
Anthony,
I'm sure.
Once Tavares was out of the lineup, I think the mindset of Sheldon Keefe was, let's play a road game. Let's play a tight road
game. They played a perfect road game. That was an absolute – you're going to play a road game. That was perfect. And they overcame what I thought was some shaky goaltending early on by Jack Campbell. And then Campbell, once it got to the second period, Campbell settled in.
My issue is, how could JVR be in 11 games already have 1 goal? Like, it's hard for a guy who
period is struggling. It's not like they're not getting chances.
No, but he's not going to the net. And AB did talk about that post game, and it's true. Van Riemsdyk needs to go to the net. That's what he's technically getting paid for. He scores around 5 to 7 feet around the net. He doesn't score from further away. He doesn't, and he doesn't come in dangling either.
You're right. You're 100% right. And the crazy thing is, JVR looked better than anybody in the preseason. Right? Like, we were also saying how he completely looked like he was going to be.
He looked faster. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
and it's not like, again, the other areas of his game have actually looked real. I think have been pretty good. I think he's been good defensively. That line's been very good in terms of their defensive comportment, and also their ability to get a hold of the puck. Possession numbers are also good. They just don't finish.
They don't finish. Yeah.
No,
I think a lot of it has to do with just not willing to score dirty goals. It really feels like that's the thing that I'm feeling like. It's just. They've got guys in their team that Farabee and Konechny and Cam Atkinson. These guys all score dirty goals. And when the 3 of them get into their heads that they're goal scorers, that we're a goal scorer now, they try to get a little bit more fancy-ish, and they stop going to do what makes them goal scorers. And
at the end of the day, there was a lot of overpassing last night.
Yeah, I thought did that too.
Konechny tried this weird sort of whip around behind the back pass. Got to throw it on net. It was kind of
Couturier did a sloppy no look one too.
But I will tell you that Flyers' first line last night was not good. I mean, they were good. I thought they were good defensively, but I felt offensively they looked at. They didn't know what they were. They didn't look like.
When do you see Claude Giroux with an open shot can't even hit the net?
Yeah. Well, now can we? The league expanded to 32 teams with Seattle coming in. I think we need to go back down to 31 and disperse the Arizona Coyotes, because that organization is a friggin' disgrace. I mean, they're 1-11-1.
Yeah.
You've got a collection of discards from a number of teams that are salary dumps, and I mean, this is embarrassing.
They're going the Oklahoma City Thunder route right now.
Oh my God!
They're going to get to the deadline.
Respect the process, Anthony. Respect the process.
But there was an embarrassing play. Like, I got home from the Flyers game, and I'm like, all right, let me turn this one on. It's 4-1, right? But then there's a point behind the net where Kaprizov and Zuccarello are just passing the puck to each other, and then Kaprizov decides, I guess I'll just put it in, and nobody does anything. Like, it's just, that's how bad it is for Arizona. Like, unfortunately, I feel bad for, like, Jacob Chikrin. He's much better than the minus 20-something he is. He's going to end up the season like minus 30-something. But, again, you're a minus. This is where Jaromir Jagr's lying when he was on the Capitals. I'm a minus when I step out on the ice. You are on the Arizona Coyotes. You really are.
Now, we have to mention this, and we've mentioned it occasionally over the last few weeks, but the situation with the Ottawa Senators is getting to the point of, now that I believe it's 8 players now that are on COVID protocol. There are people who believe that the game, I think it's tonight against the LA Kings, should be canceled or postponed and rescheduled, but we remember that the league is like, well, if we have to start rescheduling games, then we may have to, and I think that's the motivation behind this. We're not gonna postpone games, because if we start postponing games, the owners who don't want to go to the Olympics are gonna say, okay, we're postponing games, we can't go to the Olympics, and they don't want. Honestly, I think that's the motivation behind not postponing games, and this is stupid. And
what's the player amount? What's the amount of players and coaches that have to miss a game before it's not an NHL game? That's really the question.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in the preseason they have a rule. What's the rule in the preseason? How many NHL players you have to have in the game with that NHL experience?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the reality is, like, if 8 guys on this team are in COVID protocol, then the team has been exposed to COVID very clearly. Everybody, like the whole team, has been exposed. Other guys might not be testing positive for this, but they've been around people who are. So I mean, why not just say, okay, this to you, you take a break. You take this team takes a break for a couple of days. I mean, it's just, to me, that would make a lot more sense than perhaps risking, giving this to the LA Kings, who are, from 220. I know the LA Kings are probably not coming back around or what have you, but this is an instance where, maybe you switch that other Ottawa game, maybe you have 2 games in LA this year, and you have 2 games in Ottawa next year. You figure that out. That's just like, to me, that's not the end of the world. And you can fix this without, but yeah, I mean, to me, the reality is not how many people are out, but that there's a number at which that everybody's just been exposed. Like if you
that's a great point. I mean, right now it's a coach and 8 players, and you have to figure it probably is more than that.
And they've all been on buses together. They might not be testing positive yet, or they might be, whatever. But
one of them is Matt Murray, the goalie, and apparently, according to Ian Mendez, who was on a radio show I was listening to, a lot of the Ottawa players are now not even staying at home with their families. They're staying in hotels. They're sort of resuming the bubble type of situation in terms of sequestering them.
That probably has left the barn already, though, like X said.
Well, that's the problem also is Murray and Formanton, who both tested positive, are faced Boston on Tuesday, which now you got to worry, okay, who in Boston has it? Boston's going to face somebody else next. And then we start, as Zach loves to say, the domino effect, right? That other teams could be impacted based upon games that are played with other opponents, obviously.
And here's the reality here. The other thing you have to think about is this is the flu. Like, this is, it's very, very intense flu. But when guys have been vaccinated, I was vaccinated and I got it. It was horrible for a week. I had the flu. But, this is a little different than where we were before, when we had, when people weren't vaccinated and it could turn into much more dangerous situations. You still have to not try to spread it to people outside who aren't vaccinated or what have you. But in Canada, the vaccination's really pretty strong. And I don't think we're at the point where, I think that's why the NHL is afraid to cancel seasons. I think the NHL wants to treat this like this is the flu. That's what I've heard, and I don't know that that's the smart way of doing it, but that is how they're looking at it.
But you can't, because of the reasons we just cited in those other cities. Now you could potentially have a problem now.
Yeah, no, and the way this spreads is much worse than the flu. And
way worse.
It's not like that. So I mean, although you don't know that because of the spreader theories that are out there now too, that there's COVID is spread by like 2% of the people that get it, and everybody else doesn't really spread it. So there's all different things that we don't understand still. That's where we're at this really.
They do have some hard numbers. I read them the other day.
Yeah. So I mean,
nothing is 100%. Nothing.
They're working on a test right now. I know a person who works at Merck here. Merck is a drug pharmaceutical company that literally my town is a suburb of. Everybody works here. Everybody who lives around me works there, it seems like. And they're working on a test to find out if you're a spreader or not, because that's a big thing, and I think that would be an interesting thing to know. Like, if you're a spreader, then that changes the way you should react to COVID, perhaps. And I like the way that's heading. I think that's a smart way of handling it, or looking into it at least. But again, it's not all the answers, it's just a different way of doing it. So yeah, I mean,
all right. So the Bruins didn't have any positive tests. They did test them.
Right, so that's but the Bruins aren't limited to the
Ottawa. As of now, there's an incubation period associated with it, right? So you got to think a week or two down the road.
Exactly.
If there are cases that were positive, you're gonna have to stretch it back to probably when Ottawa faced Boston, right? And then who did Boston face next? When is it a couple of weeks down the road from there? And that's the unfortunate part, as you said. You don't know who spreads and who doesn't spread. That's the problem.
Right. We'll find. So far, the game's on though as of now. So. We'll see. It's still, I guess it's the game's like people are heading towards the game now. I mean, this is when it would be getting called. Like if you're a media person, you're getting there half hour, an hour from now.
Yeah. They're not going to call it. We know that.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to call it. Now, this came out about 3 hours ago that ESPN had been contemplating what ABC game should go on after Thanksgiving. I don't know if you follow this story or not, but the original thought was the original game that was going to be on ABC.
Wait, on Thanksgiving or after?
No,
Friday.
Black Friday after Thanksgiving.
Okay, but all right. So I have a question before you answer that question.
Go ahead.
NBC did have a game at night on Thanksgiving a few times. Why wouldn't they do that again?
I don't know. I liked it.
Because they're running. They will have the night football game. They get the.
So now it's because it's on ESPN that they're not going to do it.
That's probably going to be
right. So, but instead, they would have it on Friday on ABC. So you have it during the day when.
Yeah.
It used to be on NBC,
but it was
NBC.
It was supposed to be
Friday afternoon.
It was supposed to be a Blackhawks game, and now they've switched it to Bruins Rangers.
Yes.
And there's and they're saying that's because that's a way more competitive game, which it is, and that could be a better game, which is true.
That's true. I mean, they had Coyotes on twice this week on national games. The next one's Friday, so
yeah, right.
It is more competitive than that.
But the inside scoop on this is that they did it because they're afraid of the optics of the Blackhawks.
Yes, the rain is yellow, is what if you get me drift.
They're able to. I mean, listen. If that is the reason, again with the Blackhawks being as non-competitive as they have been, they have pretty good cover for this.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they do, and I think they should be in a situation where they can make that kind of a move. That's what the NFL does all the time, and to put the better games in the better situations. I mean, you don't want to. And that's going to be a very strong game. I mean, the Bruins and the Rangers are a classic matchup, obviously, and they are. I would love to see them get to the point where something like that is like the game, like Boston, the Rangers.
Well, they did. NBC finally did. They were having a Thanksgiving game, but now ESPN has decided they don't want to compete with their own.
I want the same two teams playing every year.
Well, I thought it was
straight lines. I want that.
Russ and Anthony, wasn't it Rangers Flyers a couple years ago also?
Yeah,
on a Friday, and the Rangers playing the Bruins. I think either a year or 2 years before that.
Yes,
was the game probably 5-6 years ago.
The Flyers have a 3:30 game that day.
Every Black Friday.
Every Black Friday they have a game.
Yeah.
They always do. Sometimes one year was like at noon. This year's and then.
See, this is where I kind of wonder
this year.
Why didn't TNT take a game on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I don't know.
They don't want to go head to head against the NFL.
Well, the NFL's again, there's an 8 o'clock. Although Russ and I can very well remember Jets Patriots on the Thursday night game where it was halftime and you clicked off if you made it to halftime. So
you could do it. So at a 6:30 game, you're really like in the middle of everything. You could do it, and you're not going to lose.
They want to show clear and present danger for the 50,000th time.
Right there, you go.
Elf.
We're sleepless in Seattle.
Alice's restaurant for everybody.
It used to be a 12 or 1 o'clock game they used to do on NBC a lot, also, as opposed to 3 o'clock.
Right.
Do you remember? Is that Thanksgiving? Do you remember that Thanksgiving tradition of Alice's restaurant?
No.
You guys don't remember that?
I know what it is. I
know the song Alice's Restaurant, right?
Yeah, I don't like it.
Not 3.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it either. But my family had for years, we don't have it anymore. But we had like a Thanksgiving football game on Thanksgiving morning, with everybody, all the cousins and everything like that. And we would meet up in Haddonfield and have this like crazy out. No snow, no matter what it did, we played, and every day it started at 10 o'clock, and WMMR around here, which was a rock station back then, which I think has turned into WMGK, which is basically all the people who used to be at WMMR. But anyway,
it's as beloved to me as American Pie, another song that could just be, you could lop off 8 minutes of it and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, John DeBell is on WMGK in the morning, which is like, I just heard that the other day. I'm like, what? Anyway, so driving to this game they would play Alice's Restaurant, which is like a 45-minute song. It was like a Thanksgiving tradition. So there you go.
Play supper's ready.
I listened to John DeBello before anybody in Philly did. He was on Long Island.
He was on Long Island, really?
He was on a new wave station on Long Island, and he was really good.
LIR or DRE, or is it called then?
Yeah, he was the big guy.
Oh man, there's something.
They're playing Agata Vida 2.5 times in the 45 minutes. Basically.
There you go.
Now,
there you go.
Jack, let's talk about the rumor that you reported yesterday about Jonathan Taves.
Yep. We know this is coming. And it's funny because I've been, You know this is coming. The Taves Kane rumors are coming, right? And it's like, and you sit back and it's early still because we're almost American Thanksgiving, which is a big time. So
I think the move is coming. I just don't know whether it's coming during this season because $10.5 million is tough to fit in.
No, it is. There's no question about it, and it's going to take a lot of doing, like to make that happen, for sure. And
I'll tell you the team that he'd want to go to. He probably would want to go to the Winnipeg Jets. He's from there.
Right.
He's from Winnipeg. Although I think we make too much of teams that people want to go to in these.
No, but I've interviewed him. He holds Winnipeg in seriously high regard. I did an article on him just about Winnipeg. Like I
could absolutely see him signing there as UFA. When he has but for now, Winnipeg might not. The team I hear is Calgary, right? And Calgary with Jonathan Taves, and remembering that Calgary was in on Jonathan Eichel, or Jonathan Eichel, on Eichel. Jack Eichel.
Yeah, it's Jack Eichel's brother.
Jackson
Eichel.
Trey Mangiapane in that deal.
Right. That's I did that the other day. You forgot that. You didn't hear that, Anthony, but I called Mangiapane Mangione. There you go.
You did Mangione. That was good.
Did he say Chuck Mangione? I was looking for the.
No, we said Chuck, but he just said Mangione.
Andrew Mangione.
Listen, my high water mark of comparisons that someone said I looked like Paul Rudd last night. So that's at this point now you guys can't do anything. So.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That would make you the sexiest man alive, Ant. I'm sorry.
At age 60, I'm only 44. God damn it!
I love you, but
you mentioned that because I was not going to.
I'm all for the sexiest man dead.
I'm a big fan, but
all right. So yeah. I once sat Patrick Swayze at a blackjack table, and someone said we look the same. So how about that? Here you go. All right, Calgary.
Yeah, there's free drinks in Atlantic City.
Calgary has interest in Jonathan.
You would drink.
I know. Calgary has interest in Jonathan Taves, and that would make some sense. I mean, Calgary is definitely a team. They were going after Jack Eichel. I think they see themselves as further along. They might be getting a little ahead of themselves with this kind of a trade, though. And what it would take.
They are.
It would take to get Jonathan Taves? Would it take like we talked about? Would it take that?
Heck, if they were involved in Eichel, they're obviously looking for a center. They're looking for a game-changing center in this circumstance, or they feel like they can get one. If there's a way they can make it work, I could totally see it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the indicator. Sean Monahan has been playing fourth line center for them, and he's making $6.3 million under Daryl Sutter. I mean, I would imagine that any deal involving Calgary, if it was Taves,
Captain serious for boring Monahan.
I want to give you an observation, Mike. When I watched the game the other night, having watched Gaudreau a lot in his career, I don't think he's enjoying Daryl Sutter hockey. The only time he seemed to be enjoying himself in that game, there was a play where Monahan actually jumped off the bench and was on his line for a minute, and he fed him right next to the goal, and Monahan almost put it in. There was a little bit of a spark in Gaudreau at that moment because all of a sudden he was together with Monahan again, where now it's like forbidden. Like, you can't do it. It's not going to work. Yeah. And I think he's not having fun.
But Lindholm, Gaudreau, and Chuck is a pretty darn good line. Honestly, Monahan is in Suter's major league doghouse. And as somebody who rosters him in 2 leagues, he's been horrific this year. Anytime he's seeing third-line duty and he's seeing some power play. So if he doesn't score in the power play, he's not scoring, and his value has tanked the last couple of years. And plus, the jump he used to have skating-wise, it looks like he's lost kind of a step or so, but he's clearly way down the pecking order in its center. I mean, Lindholm is moving to the number one. I don't see Monahan getting that role back anytime soon, and I think if they can get out of that salary, they'd be happy to.
He's playing Trevor Lewis more minutes.
So this
he's in the doghouse. I don't think there's any question.
This is delivery of message.
Chicago would probably like to get Monahan in that deal. That would be a good pickup for Chicago in that deal, and along with other.
Yeah, but his contract's running out, and so is Gaudreau's, and that's the problem. If they get Taves, there's no question these other two guys, if they're not in a deal, they're going to walk to UFA.
Okay. Monahan's got another year as Taves does, so they're the same length.
Okay, but you're getting them for a year. Is Chicago really going to do that? No, they need to get long-term pieces.
Right, I agree.
They do, and there have to be other things involved in this to get this done. I mean,
there's not enough. Look, I mean, Calgary doesn't have a lot of other things to trade.
Connor Zary.
Yeah, I mean, but again, so we're going to be in the same boat as Vegas. If you trade Zary or you trade Peltier, you're talking about having one grade A prospect in your entire system That's it. One.
But if you think you can make a run, and you also have Taves signed for a couple of more years, right? And if you again look, I think you'd be your number 2 because honestly, I'd leave Lindholm as my number 1. Chicago's got to decide if Kirby Dack is really a number 1 because honestly, they've been playing him times as a number 3, maybe as a 2 because they've played Tyler Johnson at the number 1 or the number 2. Plus, also honestly, we haven't talked about, right? We all agree that Taves handled the whole situation as his press releases and conferences horrifically with what happened in Chicago. Right now, I don't know whether or not that has any downstream impact or view with teams acquiring him. Probably
I don't think
not.
it would with Winnipeg based on
well, Winnipeg he's from there. Calgary probably not also, but it wasn't a good look for him as the face of your franchise. He goes to Chicago. He probably is not the face to Calgary. I mean, he's not the face of the franchise given somebody else there. Winnipeg, just for the look because he's from there, he probably takes up a step in class in terms of how he's viewed within the organization as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all that went down may help him say, okay, waive my no trade clause and get out of there.
Yes,
I think that's a possibility with Taves.
I agree with that.
People are saying, okay, I need to get a new, and I think he is a big story anywhere he lands in Canada because he is Captain Canada, and there's no question about that he's a major story. He's a major deal if Calgary gets him. Calgary is really in an arms race right now with Edmonton. That's really what's happening, and which we're all going to benefit from. It's going to be a wonderful thing to watch as Edmonton goes after Marc-Andre Fleury and everything keeps continuing on throughout this trade deadline. We're going to have a wonderful time with it. Another rumor that I can't.
One more thing. So let me get Randy put in the chat. He's right. Michael Backlund is really the number 2. I mean, so Randy, I think is a very good number 2. But if you get Taves and put Backlund as a number 3 or use him in certain situations, he could be a 2-3. It just lengthens their lineup overall, depending. But if you're not playing Monahan anyway, who would you rather have, Jonathan Taves or Monahan, especially with Monahan's contract expiring?
Yeah.
Unless your concern is the cost to acquire impacts your future so greatly, you don't want to make the move. Because defensively, they're good, and Markstrom has shown he is clearly a upper tier goaltender in this league right now.
Yeah, I think he's Team Canada's goalie, right? And not obviously Team Sweden's goalie, but I think he's going to be the goalie of the Olympics.
But in a couple of years, where are they going to get goal scoring from?
I think he's going to be the story from the Olympics on Team Sweden. I think
where's the Calgary goal scoring going to come from in 2 years? That's what you have to ask yourself.
Mangiapane.
Yeah. So Daryl Sutter will be back on the farm, and
we make fun of Mangiapane. He's scoring, so
I don't make fun of him.
He's become a heck of a player for the contract he's done there.
It's just not a top 20 scorer.
Playing
14
minutes involved in this conversation now.
Wait. Let me just.
If you give minutes per minute a game, he's top 10.
Wait. We have to fill Jan in here. The reason we're like Russ and I both think Mangiapane is a really good player, but Eck, in his usual hyperbole, decided to say that Mangiapane was going to be a top 10 NHL scorer. And
he said top 20. He did back down.
No. He said
I did back down. My article says top 20, Mike.
No, he backed down to 20, Mike. Be fair.
Because I thought you were making me crazy.
Eck edited after he posted it originally, so we have to take that into account.
Even a top 20.
He may have been. Hey, look, he may have been just a year off with Sorokin.
Yeah. I'm usually a year off too.
I still think Shesterkin is going to be better, but we're not going to go
be 1 year ahead
right now.
That's a different argument for a different day.
As long as he doesn't get run by the opposition too often, that's a whole different conversation.
I'm not going to get into the Andrew Mangiapane.
Sorry, Mike, I had to bring it up.
But no, I think I'm still completely 100% convinced that he is going to be a star. Anyway, the other trade rumor that I was working on was the fact that Pittsburgh has actually discussed Brendan Gallagher with the Montreal Canadiens. And I heard that from a very good source too. And, Montreal is going to be an interesting team to watch as this plays out here, what they do and which direction they go.
Contract situation?
Gallagher is in year 1 of a 6-year deal at $6.5 million.
Pittsburgh's not taking that player.
You got to remember who's at the helm there.
We're talking about Ron Hextall.
Ron Hextall and Brian Burke.
Yeah, but one of them doesn't
want Gallagher is right up their alley. If there ever was a player that was up,
one of them doesn't want long-term deals on older players.
Right. I mean,
not that old.
The only way that it makes sense from the Pittsburgh perspective is if you can ship a Jason Zucker, who has been a disappointment with them since they traded for him and signed him or I think he was under the contract that he had with Minnesota. He's making 5.5 and Gallagher's making 6.5. Then at least you're getting basically a 2-year coupon on Gallagher. But Gallagher is a type
29. I mean,
right? Gallagher is the type of player that is going to drop off the face of the earth.
He will.
He plays
the way he plays, yes.
Yeah, he's a small guy. He's a workout freak, but he plays a rough and tumble game. He's not a big guy, and once he slows down, I don't
disagree with that, but at the same time, I think that what we have to realize is that Penguins' window and how they view it The Penguins' window is about Crosby and Malkin, and
the window is this year because
right.
Because Letang and Malkin are unrestricted free agents.
Right. And I do think there's a chance they get them back. But at the same point, you're right. I think that this.
Good line. I think from Tony in the chat. Gallagher is the next Ryan Callahan.
It could be
similar type of games.
Yeah, I can see
similar
that.
type of games.
That's a very good comparison from Tony.
Although I think Gallagher plays with more of an edge than Callahan. Yeah. Callahan was physical, but he wasn't dirty. Gallagher kind of straddles the border. But in terms of physical play, in terms of potential of wearing down,
Darcy
as he ages,
he's Darcy Tucker. Remember Darcy Tucker?
No, Callahan's Darcy Tucker.
Yeah,
like,
if you're trading Gallagher, you want. I don't think you're going to take Zucker. I don't think they're good. I don't think
that deal's happening for either.
That deal would happen. I think you're looking at probably more likely. I think you would be looking at trying to see what you would get out of.
And okay, what team in their right mind is going to throw the Canadians a life preserver? You throw them a boat anchor. You don't do. You're not going to.
You throw them.
They're not throwing them a life preserver. Right? If it's Jason Zucker, they're helping each other out.
You want to throw them a boat anchor? That's you.
Right.
Yeah, we're
talking. I'd throw them a boat, Anthony.
Well, that's you. We're talking.
Right. 30 GMs in the league would hang up once your number rang. Once they caller ID'd you, 30 of them would hang up on you because of the way you treated them the year before.
They see the 716 area code and they're like, "Go to."
It can't be a GM because you're like I said, you're too much of a burn the ships guy. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. Boy, I don't know.
But I think the Kravtsov thing to Montreal is real because
I do too.
They have a lot of draft picks. They do have capital in younger players.
Yeah.
And Rangers at this point, they don't really need an NHL player for Kravtsov. They need a prospect they could say is good and a couple of really good picks. That's what they need.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, I wrote about that a little while ago too. If I
were them, if I were Chris Drury, I'd say, hey, if you want to give us Cole Caulfield, we'll throw in a pick.
Yeah, like
you have to ask.
It might happen. Like I would.
Hey, you gotta ask him, and you do exactly what I just did.
Yes.
Well, I would 100% ask because I don't know what the hell they're thinking there. Like sometimes, it's very possible that they feel like Caulfield is just a bad small American hockey player. Like who knows what they think.
That would be that would be a dangerous thought there.
It would.
Russ, I'm asking for at least Caden Gooley.
Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
Caden Gooley would be that and like a first and a second or a first and a conditional. They would take that.
They're not going to get a first. They're not going to get a first for Grasso.
He's going to walk right into the NHL. Like they will.
I know, but
it'll be like
it's like ship. It's like
it won't be from this year. It'll be like a 2023 first or something.
Yeah, which will be a lottery pick.
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Like sometimes when a guy acts that way in the NHL, look at Chip Zap. He was in Vegas and now he's over.
The guy's scoring in Russia.
He's killing it in Russia. He's the top scorer in the league. No one's going after him. No one's trying to bring him up. It's like
they're making offers. What do you mean? They're making offers.
But the reality is that I don't think that they see him as they see him as an issue right now. They don't. He's not willing to go to the minors. Like there's certain things NHL teams are not okay with. Like they're not okay with a guy.
He actually said that's not true.
He's a veteran player, and he's again. Why would you make like a pittance when you could be making a king's ransom in Russia.
Right, but here's the other part. He did say he would go to any other AHL team but the Rangers. He made that very clear, so he would play in the AHL.
That's a jerk right there. Like that to me is that's like
well, whatever. But it means that he would play in Laval is what it means.
He might. I mean, it's like he might play in Laval, but I think more or less. I mean, the reality is like, why if he's so great, why isn't he on the Rangers? Like that's another thing. Like
because it was personalities. He isn't that mature. I think this wised him up a little bit because I don't think he expected this to play out exactly like this.
It may have, or it may just be like, I'm just going to stay over here. I'm just going to stay over here and make a ton of money. Like Anthony said, I mean, what's the point? I mean, like,
no, he wants to play in the NHL. I've interviewed him, and I know somebody else who's interviewed him more than a few times. He does have a burning want to play in the NHL, but he is a young kid, and young kids do dumb things sometimes.
For sure. And I mean, and I wrote about it back on October 22nd that the Rangers were getting calls from the Canadiens, Kings, and Flames, and and that's this. I think those are three teams that are still probably going to call about it. Those are three teams that are probably. And I haven't done any follow up on that since then, but I think that I wouldn't be shocked if the Flames are definitely, like Anthony said, they're trying to do something like this. They want to add one more big piece to their puzzle, and they feel like they're one piece away from being a serious threat out there. And and Sutter makes you believe that the way he coaches, the way the team plays, and the way
you don't bring. Listen, at the end of the day, you didn't bring Daryl Sutter in to sort of you're trying to push the envelope to win within this window to win a cup.
Plus,
the interesting way that it's played out is the two guys you thought who your core guys are of this era for Calgary are now not.
Yeah, right. They're the aging veterans on this team. It feels like
it would have to be more than Hayton. I get the reuniting part, but the problem is, I just watched Hayton play again recently in Philly. He's missing parts of his game that he had in juniors. He needs to sort of get retooled, and so it's not enough because Kratzov's doing it at a much higher level. Like here's an example.
Hayton may need to pull a Lawton.
Yeah, he's already had a 3-point game, right? Now, you could say whatever you want about Kratzov, but there was still a risk element with Kaprizov coming in over here, putting up big numbers too. But it translated. So if he puts up 10 points in 4 or 5 games, the Rangers will get a lot for him because that's at a professional level, no matter how you slice it.
Right. That's true.
It's
true, Russ, but at the same time, I do think
there'll be some teams that say exactly what you're saying. Not everybody's going to want him. I get that.
I mean, it gets everyone agrees no one's going to go after Evander Kane if he's put on waivers, right? Like there's certain things. And
somebody will take Evander Kane. I disagree with that. If he gets bought out, somebody will take him.
Oh, he got bought out. Well, he can't be bought out until the end
next year. Somebody will take him after he gets bought out.
If he gets bought out, yeah. But if he's on waivers, no one touches him.
Right? No, nobody will touch him on waivers.
Right. I think there's just something about this. Go ahead,
just to finish off here before we end the show, Russ. 2 players sent back to junior: Henrix Lapierre by the Caps, Jake Neighbors by the Blues. I don't think we're surprised.
Both are really talented. I like Lapierre better.
I liked what I saw out of Lapierre.
But he has to shore up his defensive game. Like you knew, they were like, you know what? Let's get him in there now with people hurt. He could give us a little bit of offense, but there's more to his game. Now, I will say this. Neighbors has shown an elevation in his game because he was already a good 2-way player and he could score. So I think Neighbors could actually be up again, not that far in the future, because I think he did prove something in his stint.
So right now of the 2021 draft, the only 2 players that have not been sent back, Eklund was sent back. The only 2 that have not been sent back are Mason McTavish and Cole Sillinger.
What about? Oh yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, I mean, again, I think at the end of the day, I don't even know if I'd want McTavish there all year because I'm not sure that's a benefit.
Yeah, Sillinger, however, though, is
Sillinger's fit in. I'll let him sit.
He's fit in, and Columbus is off to a good start, and he's a part of what they're doing there. So, yeah, I wouldn't have necessarily pegged Cole Sillinger to be the last man standing from the class.
No, but there will be guys on the back end. Like if Owen Power decides he's leaving Michigan, he's going to get to play in the NHL, and there's a few of them.
I'm convinced he's going to burn the first year of his ELC at the end of the year. It makes sense for him because then he gets to the big money in 2 years instead of 3 years. It makes.
We'll see. I mean, it
all
all depends.
I don't think that's going to be his choice.
It all depends how many of his teammates are going to stay, Mike. If everybody gets together in Michigan and says, "Hey, we got really close this year, but we think we could win it next year." Listen, that's Berniers, that's Ken Johnson. These are great players.
If they win it this year, Russ.
If they win it this year, he'll go.
Yeah. I think that's about it. That's all I have, guys.
And you'll get Eric Portillo too if you care. So.
Yeah, that's all we have. All right, we'll be back again tomorrow for Friday's show. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy the games tonight.